my two best girlfriends, Marissa and Liz, they used to call me Wonton.
But why?
Wonton, but with a J, not W-N. Did I answer the question right?
No, that's perfect. No, that's absolutely perfect.
Sometimes I get on a tangent and I'm like, it really wasn't until I graduated from college that I started, like, I remember like, entertaining friends.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
We're in a real kitchen. People are still figuring out ovens and situations.
You went directly into
So what was the question? My name is Janice Hudgins, and I am the chef and owner of Little Miss Vietnamese Cuisine. I was born here in Charleston, outside of Charleston, in a small town called Moncks Corner. So my parents came over here from Vietnam in 1979, and so I was born right after that. My parents came over here with two of my older brothers, and then also some cousins as well. They were leaving Vietnam late after the war, and then they had to go to a refugee camp in Malaysia for 6 months before they came over here. And then they came over here with, my two older brothers and then three little cousins that they were taking care of all by themselves. We had a family already here in Charleston, so that's why they moved to Charleston, because we already had established family over here, but I'm first generation. So I think for them, because they couldn't take anything with them from Vietnam, every Saturday, my parents would get together with all of their relatives and all of our cousins over at our house. And so my mom would make like the main dish. She would make, a giant pot of pho for 30 people, whatever it was. And then all of my aunts, my dad has 5 sisters and three brothers. And so essentially my aunts would come and make all of their dishes that they were known for.
Yeah.
And my mom would make the main dish, and then like all the uncles, my dad, they would just like get together, like smoke cigarettes and hang out and talk and play cards, and all the kids would just run around. And that was every single Saturday with my grandmother, who was my dad's mom, and we just all get together every single Saturday, and it was like the best memory ever. It was like the happiest times. We didn't need anything, and it was just such good food all the time. She's like, oh, what is Aunt Ha making today? What is Aunt Hia making? Like, Mom always had pho, or she had some type of a soup noodle dish, because like it just went, everybody could have it. And so that was, for the longest time, that's what we always did. That's really why started Little Miss Sauce, because like I wanted that same feel, and I wanted to keep, true to like what we did. And we do some things that aren't necessarily traditional Vietnamese, but for the most part, the core of it is all my mom's recipe. Chicken pho takes about 3 hours total time, from the time like you're roasting everything, to cooking in, to skimming the broth and everything like that, and then maybe pulling the chicken like maybe 3.5 hours. Rice noodles, and these are just dry rice noodles that you soak a little bit in water. And for a while, when we were first testing stuff out too, like, do we just like cook all the rice noodles at one time, all the pho noodles, and like it was sticking, it wasn't, keeping well, and then you just put it in the hot water and let it cook, and then you shake it out. So at the beginning, we were like, do we make all the pho noodles and just keep it in the warmer? But then it was like, after a while, it was like sticking too much, and it was not doing well. So then we went back to doing just the dry noodles, and then cooking it to order. And we shred all of our chicken. That's 13 chickens shredded, and that's all it is. You want it just to be, not too cooked all the way. Add your chicken. Add your pho garnish here. Having hot broth. Pickled red onion here for color. And that's pho gao. That is the, traditional dish of Vietnam. My mom is a huge influence on what we do. She's the name of our restaurant. We really look to her. My brother and I were born here, so we didn't grow up in Vietnam where we were eating, authentic food. Like the authentic food we get is from like my mom and my aunts, So we really look to her to give us that basis of Vietnamese cuisine. Back then, most all these women, they never write down their recipes. All your grandmothers, your moms, they don't write down recipes. It's just by taste and by look, by smell. And so she would always tell my brother and I, she would make something and she'd say, come taste this, come smell this. Because if you smell it, then you'll know, remember what is missing. This taste, she'll make a marinade and she'll say, okay, this is how it's supposed to taste. So now smell it. What are you smelling? Do you smell the garlic? Do you smell the shallots? Do you smell the lemongrass? That's my main memory of, my mom. My mom could just walk into a pantry in her refrigerator I'm just gonna grab a couple of things and, whip this amazing dish together. And so I was used to making, back at home, when I was just private chef, making a small batch, maybe twice the size, right? And now we're making batches like this every 2 days. So the original recipe, the batch requires maybe half a lime, maybe one whole lime for the batch. And so when I came here, we were literally making batches with squeezing lime juice. So I was torturing Mari. She was making lime juice, the fish sauce with obviously we're batching it up, so you're doing so much hand squeezing lime juice. So she's like, maybe one day you should just get a lime presser. And so then Mari brought a lime presser, and so we were pressing lime juice then. But even that was a pain in the butt because you were barely yielding that much, And then one day my husband came by with some Natalie's straight lime juice because I didn't want that artificial stuff. And he's like, well, we use this at Mellow Mushroom. So I was like, you've been keeping this from me for 7 months. You see us squeezing little wedges of limes, and yet you knew that there was a better product where it was just straight lime juice. And so after 6 months of us using either doing it by hand or using the lemon squeezer, we finally got the gallon size lime juice of just one ingredient, which is what we wanted, just limes. It's funny is I actually never thought I would do this for a career. I never thought I would do this for a living. So it wasn't until after college where I started really having the confidence to cook for friends and having dinner parties, and I was making steaks and potatoes, and I was not making any Vietnamese food at all. But I loved cooking and entertaining and taking care of my friends and family. So I never really even cooked my mom's food in the beginning because she always did it, and she lived 20 minutes away, and she always just showed me. And she's so busy. She's raising 4 kids. She's working, so she's always putting together really, really quick. She's not really teaching me how to make these recipes step by step. I would have to go home every single weekend, and so she would pack up a ton of food for me to take back to college Charleston. And all of my roommates were eating, ramen noodles in a cup, and they're like, what is that? I'm it's mommy's food, So everybody always craved mommy's food. They always called my mom mommy. I was very driven to have a career. The only one in my family who graduated from college, and so there's a lot of pressure to be successful. Because my parents, that's why they moved here, so that their children, any immigrants, you want your children to have a better opportunity. So, and with that, they said, you have to go to college. You have to get an education. So I went to college, went to CFC. So I always thought I would have more of an executive career path, I tried real estate for a while. I worked in sales. I thought I would do medical sales, something like that, for a while. But then family took precedence. And my husband was in restaurants, and I never thought I would ever do a restaurant because I saw how much work, how hard it is, and how much he did all the time. It was all around the clock. So I never thought I would do it. short rib val buns. Our chef, Russ, came up with this recipe. These are actually not my mom's recipe. But traditional Vietnamese val buns are not the open-faced ones. They're more like the stuffed val buns. But this is just something that we've kind of like taken a spin on, that we've done in the past. You're gonna want to try this. So good. Easier now, but I didn't have that, like most chefs here, they go to culinary school. I didn't have that foundation. Mine was just more of, because I enjoyed making it, my foundation is like my mom. So I would watch cooking shows, and I had a really awesome boss when I was working at Banana Republic, and her name's Allison, and she always cooked and shared with us, and I was like, I loved how that made people feel. And so I started like asking like, well, how did you make that? Like, what recipes did you make? So, because I wanted to like make it for my friends. Not really until I started off my career as a private chef a couple of years ago that I really did it full time. So, because I was always just making, I love cooking, and I love cooking for my own family. I have 4 kids myself, my husband and I stayed home for 10 years with my kids. Like, that was my job. Was to raise our family. So I made dinner every single night, something different, and I love like experimenting and with different, cuisines, and I love watching Barefoot Contessa on Food Network. So like
at Barefoot Contessa one time I was behind the counter and somebody came to me and asked for Gestapo soup. I was a little confused for a minute, but I figured out they wanted a gazpacho.
I have like all of Anna Garden's like cookbooks, and like that's really like how I started cooking too. It's like just following recipes, like knowing good recipes and just following it.
Then in here, 2 shots of vodka. Then
we started doing pop-up dinners at Butcher and Bee in 2012. That I started to really like. My mom said, "Yeah, I'm getting older now. Like, you need to learn our recipes. You need to learn how to make fucks. I'm not going to be around forever, and I just don't write stuff down either. So you just need to come and learn how to make the stuff." So we were essentially cooking as a private chef for 6, 8, 12 people, and now we're cooking for hundreds of people a week. So having to batch up and making, like, we thought making, a small jar of fish sauce, 4-quart container fish sauce was like a lot back then, 2 years ago. And now it's like we're making 22 quarts of fish sauce like every two days or something. So it's like the quantity, knowing like how much to make, batching things up, learning from all the chefs here too has been great. Everybody's here has been so helpful, and they've all kind of helped us along the way as well. We help each other out. Everybody's in this business is trying to find that balance, and because it's so, I came to the workshop 9 months ago essentially, and it went from being, somewhat full-time, but also on my own terms, to not really on my terms as much because we're part of a greater whole. Opening a new business, opening a new food hall, which is the first in Charleston, it's like, it's different, and you're gonna go through a lot of bumps along the way, and there was just like not a good mix before of just, from what he thought, there just wasn't a good vibe, and he was like, I know Janice, I know her family, and I just need for her, like, he was like looking for a female influence to kind of break up all the testosterone too here. So he was like, will you please come here? And I was like, I don't know, Michael, like, that just doesn't seem like something I want to do. Of course, he convinced me, and now 9 months later, originally signed for 3 months, and then 6 months, and now it's been 9 months. So yeah. Being at the workshop, even though it's small compared to other restaurants. It's been my biggest accomplishment. It's just being here, I'm used to, before it's just me and my brother and maybe one other person. So having a staff, and I know at the end of the day, this will not be the end all be all. But this has been great and hard, and we've grown so much. So I think just like I've learned so much being here, and so like I'm learning every single day. And this, I have to say that this has been the best part of the business itself because of how much I've learned as an owner, as a chef, what to do with my business, what I don't want to do. A lot of things that I don't want to do in the next place. And everybody's always asking me like, "Oh, are you gonna open a brick and mortar?" I'm like, don't know if that's 100%. I don't know if a restaurant is what I have to do.
Do it.
Hey, look, Ma, I made it. Hey, look, Ma, I made it.
My mom's worry was like having her recipes out there for other people that were not my brother and I. And so that was like scary for her. She's like, well, what if they're gonna take these recipes and sell it to somebody or whatever, like I was like, but you can't grow as a business if it's just two people. Like you can't. It's not sustainable. And that was hard in the beginning too, and that was a big, like, my brother and I, he'll tell you, like, we butt heads over that, because, like, he's been in restaurant for the longest time, and he's like, you just can't, one, you gotta teach people, you have to be able to, like, inspire people, and you can't just, like, say, do this and do that, like, you gotta, like, teach them how to do it, and you gotta let go of some of these things. You can give someone a recipe, but if they don't know how to execute it and they don't know like how it's supposed to taste, like they're still not gonna be able to do it, And it's not as intimate here because like, when I was as a private chef, you're like, it's just such a different setting. And you don't get to see and know like the reaction of every single person. Consistency is so important to, I think, to the success of any business. That's what is key, is like people they want to know that when they come back they're going to get the same amount of the way it looks, the way it's all done, the way it tastes, like it all has, that's the focus. It's like, it has to be consistent with what we do. The customer wants to experience it the same way each time, and my mom especially wants to make sure that we're executing it the same way. So she makes a couple of appearances here and there, quality control, but she also it's been hard for her. She's relinquished a lot of her recipes to us and the way we choose to interpret it at the same time, because I would say we interpret it like 99%, but she's also only used to cooking for, 10 people at a time, and so there are things that we've had to change to make sure that we can execute it well here. We're doing batches of pho. I think it was good. She loved it. I think, and we were testing different things along the way, and there have been like little rough spots along the way. She's like, that's not good. That's not how it's supposed to taste, But the first time we made, and I would say, especially my brother, first time we made beef pho, which is like the hard. It's a lot. We do chicken pho here. I remember the first time we made it, it was like, Mom approves. It's like, yes, like that's a huge win. Like when you have Vietnamese people who are coming here and eating your food, like, and Mom says yes, like, that's all you need. But if Mom says it's great, then it's great. The most important opinion is Mom's opinion. My dad was, I don't know what part of the Air Force he was when he was living in Vietnam, but he would get sponsored by United States Air Force over here. And so we had my grandmother, we called her my grandmother Lila, and she sponsored my dad when he was 18, a couple of his buddies, and they lived out in Illinois and Chicago area. So she was a widow. Her husband was in the Air Force, and so she would sponsor these kids from Vietnam and take them in, show them how to ice skate, whatever, and take them around. And then my dad left. They kind of like didn't keep in touch for like a decade, and then when my dad moved to Charleston, she had heard that my dad had moved to Charleston, and she would drive every year to Florida, to the Air Force base in Florida, and spend time there. And as she would pass through South Carolina, she would pick up a phone book.
Do you know what this is?
A phone book.
It's a phone book, exactly. And what do you use this for?
When I was little, I used to, sit on it because I was too small for
Oh,
the table.
that's what, yep.
Yeah.
Right.
And called every single Nguyen. She did this for years. She called, she's like, do you know Nguyen? And my dad's name was not listed in the phone book. And for years, she would call anytime she would pass through, she would pick up the phone book and she would say, do you know Nguyen? And one day, she came across, I think it was my dad's friend, Min, and she said, do you know my friend, Nguyen? And he's like, I do. And they reconnected after that. I mean, you didn't have the internet then. Like, she picked up the Yellow Pages.
That's crazy.
And called up every single Nguyen to see if somebody knew my dad.
That is crazy. I love
crazy?
that. I love that.
I know.
That's
So
great.
great.
That's a great story.
Yeah. Success to me is, and I've thought about this many times, like what is important to me? Like what is gonna make me sleep well? What is gonna make me happy? Does it make my mom happy? Does it, is my family so proud, which is great to me. And, customers do come up all the time and tell us like how much they love it. Success defined by, sales, definitely not. I mean, I think anybody will tell you like, yes, it's good, it's essential because like that's what, keeps the doors open and keeps it operating. But success to me is like everybody's proud of what they're doing. They love what they're doing. So I live in the moment of, I don't try to like think too far ahead. Even though I'm like always looking like what's the next best thing for Little Miss Ha, but trying to live in the moment of, okay, everybody's loving this right now. Like every new venture that we get into, like, are they still gonna like it? Like I still think that. Like I go to, I cater an event, or I do another different party, or we introduce a new dish. I'm like, are they still gonna like it? Like I keep like asking myself that. Like that's the thing with like Charleston. I feel like so trendy. I've only lived in Charleston, so I don't know how it is in other big culinary cities, but I feel like Charleston's just so trendy. Like they hear a new restaurant opens up, and they all go to that restaurant, and they all like, oh my god, I love it so much, and then like 10 other restaurants will pop up, and then they all migrate over there. And then that one restaurant was like, I thought I was doing such a great job. Like, where are all my people? And they don't. And it takes a while for them to circle back around, I feel like. And so if they can like just stay strong and they can just keep going for a while, people eventually circle back around. But it's hard, because there's so much competition. You just have to do you. And you can't worry about like who else is doing another Vietnamese restaurant, who else is doing, this dish or whatever. Like you just gotta do you, and you just have to be happy with what you're putting out, and you can't worry about the outside noise. Success for us is as long as like we're happy and proud of our dishes, and people are loving it, then we'll continue to do it. So I want my staff to have a good quality of life. Because we're never gonna, we're not gonna be millionaires making this, but it's a lot of hard work. And so you gotta balance that out with, okay, how can they have a good quality of life? Like doing little things with them, and keeping staff small, which is great, too, because like everybody cares so much about each other. I wanna have like a good culture, for us, and we all care about each other. We all care about what happens next, and we're all constantly like, make sure you set your coworker up for success. Like we're always making sure that we have each other's back, And that's been really my proudest moment too. It's like, and people are like outside to like, man, your culture is so strong. I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, I didn't even know what that meant. Like coming here, like, what does that mean? You're like, yeah, like, your culture is so good, and because we all care about each other, and we all want to do well and be successful in that right. But we all just like at the end of the day, like, just want everybody to be happy and have a good life, because that's what it's all about. My name is Janice Hudgins, and I love making Vietnamese food.